Most people have goals. Walk down any street, knock on any door, and you'll find someone with dreams, aspirations, things they want to accomplish. But here's what separates those who achieve from those who merely wish: consistency. The daily discipline of taking action toward your goals, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of whether you see immediate results. I've studied success for decades, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty: success is not a sudden event. It's a process. It's the compound effect of small, consistent actions taken over time. Think about it this way: you don't get sick overnight from eating one bad meal. You get sick from eating poorly consistently over months and years. Similarly, you don't achieve your goals with one massive effort. You achieve them through consistent, disciplined action over time. The challenge most people face is that they approach their goals with what I call event thinking. They believe that one seminar, one book, one conversation, one burst of motivation will transform their lives. But transformation doesn't work that way. Transformation is the result of what you do consistently, not what you do occasionally. It's the daily choices, the small disciplines, the seemingly insignificant actions repeated over time that create extraordinary results. Let me share something with you that might surprise you. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not that successful people have fewer problems or face fewer challenges. In fact, often the opposite is true. The difference is in how they respond to those challenges consistently. When faced with obstacles, unsuccessful people tend to quit, make excuses, or look for easier paths. Successful people face the same obstacles but respond with consistent action toward their goals. I remember a conversation I had with a young entrepreneur who was frustrated because his business wasn't growing as fast as he wanted. He said, "Jim, I've been working at this for 6 months and I'm not seeing the results I expected." 6 months. As if 6 months of effort should produce a lifetime of results. I told him, "Son, you're looking for the harvest before you fully planted the seeds." Success takes time, and more importantly, it takes consistent effort over that time. This brings me to a fundamental principle that governs all achievement: the law of compound effect. Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world, and the same principle applies to personal development and goal achievement. Small, consistent actions compound over time to produce remarkable results. A penny doubled every day for 31 days becomes over $10 million. But here's the key: you have to stick with it through the boring middle when progress seems slow or non-existent. Most people start strong. They set their goals with enthusiasm and determination. They make impressive progress in the first few days or weeks, but then comes what I call the desert of desertion, that period when progress slows, when obstacles appear, when the initial excitement wears off. This is where most people quit. They abandon their goals not because they're impossible, but because they lack the consistency to push through the difficult middle. But here's what you need to understand: that difficult middle is where the magic happens. It's where character is built, where discipline is developed, where the compound effect begins to accelerate. The people who push through this period, who maintain their consistency even when they don't feel like it, are the ones who eventually achieve extraordinary results. Consistency requires what I call disciplined activity. It's doing what you need to do when you need to do it, whether you feel like it or not. This is perhaps the hardest lesson for people to learn because we live in a society that emphasizes feelings over disciplines. We're taught to do what feels good, to follow our passion, to wait until we're motivated. But motivation is unreliable. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Discipline, on the other hand, is something you can count on. Think about the most successful people you know or have studied. What do they have in common? They've developed the discipline of consistency. They show up every day, do the work, take the actions necessary to move toward their goals regardless of how they feel. They understand that success is not about grand gestures or heroic efforts. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, consistently over time. This is why I always tell people, don't wish it were easier were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more consistency. Because when you develop the discipline of consistency, challenges become opportunities, problems become stepping stones, and goals become inevitable outcomes. But let's be practical about this. How do you develop consistency? How do you maintain it when everything inside you wants to quit? First, you must understand that consistency is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed through practice. You don't start by trying to be consistent with everything all at once. You start small with 1 or 2 key activities, and you master those before adding more. I often recommend what I call the minimum viable consistency approach. Instead of trying to exercise for 2 hours a day, commit to 15 minutes. Instead of trying to read for 2 hours every evening, commit to 15 pages. Instead of trying to make 50 sales calls a day, commit to 5. The key is to make the commitment so small that you can't fail, so manageable that you can do it even on your worst day. Once you've established this minimum level of consistency, something interesting happens. You build momentum. Success breeds success. Consistency breeds more consistency. And gradually you can increase your commitment, but you must start where you are, with what you consistently, not with what you think you should be able to do. Here's another crucial point about consistency. It's not about perfection. You don't have to be perfect to be consistent. You just have to be persistent. If you miss a day, you don't abandon your goal, you get back on track the next day. If you have a setback, you don't use it as an excuse to quit. You use it as information to improve your approach. I've noticed that people often confuse activity with achievement. They think that being busy means they're being productive, that working hard means they're working smart. But consistency isn't just about doing things regularly, it's about doing the right things regularly. It's about focusing your consistent efforts on activities that directly contribute to your goals. This is where most people get lost. They become very consistent at activities that don't matter, while neglecting the activities that do. They consistently watch television, consistently complain about their circumstances, consistently make excuses. But they're inconsistent with the activities that would actually change their lives, learning new skills, building relationships, taking care of their health, working on their goals. So before you can be consistent, you must be clear. Clear about what your goals really are, clear about what activities will move you toward those goals, and clear about what you're willing to sacrifice to achieve them. Because consistency always requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to immediate pleasures in favor of long-term gains. It requires choosing discipline over comfort, growth over ease. This brings me to another vital aspect of consistency, the power of rituals and routines. Successful people understand that willpower is limited, but systems are unlimited. They don't rely on motivation or willpower to maintain consistency. They create systems and routines that make consistency automatic. Think about your morning routine. You probably brush your teeth without thinking about it, without needing motivation or willpower. Why? Because it's become a habit, a routine that happens automatically. The same principle can be applied to any goal-oriented activity. When you make goal-oriented activities part of your routine, they become as automatic as brushing your teeth. But creating effective routines requires intentionality. You can't just hope that good habits will develop on their own. You have to design your environment and your schedule to support the consistency you want to achieve. If your goal is to exercise regularly, you need to create systems that make exercise easier and excuses harder. If your goal is to read more, you need to create systems that put books in your path and distractions out of your way. I've found that the most successful people are masters of what I call environmental design. They structure their physical and social environment to support their goals. They surround themselves with people who share their commitment to growth and achievement. They remove temptations and obstacles that might derail their consistency. They make good choices easier and bad choices harder. This is crucial because your environment is stronger than your willpower. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if your environment is working against you, consistency becomes a daily battle. However, when your environment supports your goals, consistency becomes the natural result of good design rather than the exhausting result of constant willpower. Now, let's talk about something that trips up many people on their journey toward consistency, the myth of overnight success. We live in a culture that celebrates instant results, immediate gratification, quick fixes. Social media shows us highlight reels of other people's lives, making it seem like success happens suddenly, dramatically, visibly. But this is an illusion that destroys consistency. Real success is like an iceberg. What you see above the surface, the achievements, the recognition, the results, represents only a small fraction of what actually happened. Below the surface is years of consistent effort, daily disciplines, small improvements, setbacks overcome, and persistence through difficulty. The visible success is just the tip of the iceberg of visible consistency. When you understand this, you stop looking for shortcuts and start embracing the process. You stop being discouraged by slow progress and start being encouraged by consistent action. You realize that every day you show up, every day you do the work, every day you stay committed to your goals, you're building the foundation for future success, even if you can't see the results yet. This is why I always tell people, measure your success by your consistency, not just by your results. Results can be delayed, influenced by factors outside your control, subject to timing and circumstances. But consistency is entirely within your control. You can be successful every single day by being consistent, regardless of whether external results are immediately visible. And here's something beautiful about consistency. It creates its own momentum. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning, when you're fighting inertia, when every action requires conscious effort and decision. But as you develop consistency, action becomes easier. The habit loop takes over. What once required tremendous willpower becomes automatic behavior. I've seen this phenomenon countless times. People struggle for weeks or months to establish a new habit, fighting themselves every day to maintain consistency. Then almost suddenly the struggle disappears. The habit becomes part of who they are, and not doing it feels strange. They've crossed what researchers call the automaticity threshold, the point where behavior becomes automatic rather than conscious. But getting to this point requires what I call faith in the process. You have to trust that consistent action will eventually produce results, even when you can't see them. You have to believe that the compound effect is working, even during periods when progress seems invisible. This faith is what carries you through the difficult middle, the desert of desertion where most people quit. Faith in the process also means understanding that setbacks are part of the process, not exceptions to it. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means getting back on track quickly when you get off track. It means treating failures as feedback, not as reasons to quit. It means understanding that the path to any worthwhile goal includes obstacles, and your ability to navigate those obstacles consistently is what determines your ultimate success. Let me share with you one of the most important distinctions I've learned about consistency, the difference between consistency of action and consistency of outcome. Many people give up on their goals because they're inconsistent in their outcomes. Some days they see progress, other days they don't. Some weeks bring breakthroughs, other weeks bring setbacks. But outcome consistency is largely outside your control. What you can control is action consistency, showing up every day doing the work, taking the steps that move you toward your goals. When you focus on action consistency and let outcome consistency take care of itself, you develop the resilience and persistence necessary for long-term success. You stop being discouraged by temporary setbacks and start being encouraged by sustained effort. This shift in focus is transformational. Instead of being a victim of circumstances, you become the architect of your own progress. Instead of being dependent on external validation, you become internally motivated by your own consistency. Instead of being discouraged by slow progress, you become encouraged by faithful action. And here's what happens when you master this principle. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before. When you know that you'll show up consistently regardless of how you feel or what obstacles you face, you develop an unshakable confidence in your ability to achieve your goals. This confidence isn't based on talent or luck or circumstances. It's based on your proven track record of consistency. This self-trust is one of the most valuable assets you can develop. It means you can set bigger goals because you know you'll do the work necessary to achieve them. It means you can take on greater challenges because you know you won't quit when things get difficult. It means you can commit to long-term projects because you know you'll maintain the consistency necessary to see them through. But developing this level of self-trust requires time and proven performance. You can't just decide to trust yourself. You have to earn your own trust through consistent action over time. Every day that you do what you said you would do, you make a deposit in your self-trust account. Every day that you maintain your consistency, despite obstacles or lack of motivation, you prove to yourself that you can be counted on. This is why I often tell people that the most important promise you'll ever make is the promise you make to yourself. And the most important promise you'll ever keep is that same promise. When you consistently keep your promises to yourself, you develop the foundation for all other success. When you consistently break your promises to yourself, you undermine everything else you're trying to achieve. Think about it this way: if you can't trust yourself to do what you say you'll do, why should anyone else trust you? If you can't be consistent with your own goals, how can you be consistent with other people's expectations? Self-consistency is the foundation of all other forms of reliability and trustworthiness. Now let's address one of the biggest obstacles to consistency, the voice in your head that tells you it's okay to quit. This voice has many different messages. You've been working hard, you deserve a break. This goal isn't that important anyway. You're not seeing results fast enough. Other people are more talented than you. You'll start again tomorrow, next week, next month. This voice is what I call the consistency killer, and everyone has it. The difference between successful and unsuccessful people is not that successful people don't hear this voice, they hear it just as clearly as everyone else. The difference is that they've learned not to listen to it. They've developed the discipline to act in spite of the voice, not because of it. Developing this discipline requires understanding that feelings are temporary, but habits are permanent. The feeling of not wanting to do something will pass, but the habit of giving in to that feeling will persist. Every time you act despite not feeling like it, you strengthen the habit of consistency. Every time you give in to the feeling, you strengthen the habit of inconsistency. This is why successful people often say that they don't rely on motivation, they rely on discipline. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Discipline is behavioral and sustainable. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. And discipline is really just consistency applied to your daily actions and decisions. But here's something important to understand about discipline. It's not about being harsh with yourself or forcing yourself to do things you hate. True discipline is about aligning your daily actions with your long-term values and goals. It's about choosing long-term satisfaction over short-term comfort. It's about being kind to your future self by doing today what your future self will thank you for. When you frame discipline this way, it becomes an act of self-love rather than self-punishment. You're not depriving yourself of pleasure. You're choosing the greater pleasure of achievement over the lesser pleasure of immediate gratification. You're not being mean to yourself. You're being kind to the person you're becoming. This reframing is crucial because sustainable consistency must be built on positive motivation, not negative pressure. You can force yourself to be consistent for a short period through willpower and self-criticism, but this approach always fails in the long run. Sustainable consistency comes from connecting your daily actions to your deepest values and most important goals. So take time to clarify why your goals matter to you. Not just what you want to achieve, but why you want to achieve it. What will these achievements mean for your life, your family, your future? How will achieving these goals align with your values and contribute to your sense of purpose? When you have clear, compelling reasons for your goals, consistency becomes much easier because you're not just doing tasks, you're living your values. And remember this, every act of consistency, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. In a world that often celebrates only final outcomes, it's important to recognize the value of daily discipline. Every day you choose consistency over comfort, action over excuses, progress over perfection, you're winning. You're becoming the person capable of achieving your goals. This daily victory approach helps maintain motivation over the long term. Instead of only celebrating when you reach major milestones, you celebrate every day that you maintain your consistency. This creates positive reinforcement for the behaviors that will ultimately lead to your success, making it more likely that you'll continue those behaviors. As we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this thought. Consistency is not just a strategy for achieving goals, it's a way of life that transforms who you are. When you become a consistently acting person, you don't just achieve different results, you become a different person. You develop character traits like reliability, persistence, and self-discipline that serve you in every area of life. The goals you achieve through consistency are wonderful, but they're not the greatest benefit. The greatest benefit is who you become in the process of achieving them. The skills you develop, the confidence you build, the self-trust you earn, the character you forge, these benefits last a lifetime and apply to every future challenge and opportunity. So as you leave here today and return to your daily life, remember that every day presents you with a choice. Consistency or comfort, discipline or excuses, progress or stagnation. The choice you make today will determine not just what you accomplish, but who you become. Choose consistency and choose it again tomorrow. And the day after that, your future self will thank you for the discipline you demonstrate today. The path to your goals is built one consistent day at a time. Start today, stay consistent, and trust the process. Your dreams are not too big. Your consistency just needs to catch up to them. Thank you.